Welcome to the Hey Dad podcast, a conversation where you join David and Reese at the table as they talk about the many questions of life. Whether you're in the car, at the gym, or just distracting yourself from being productive. Why don't you pull up a chair? We're glad you're here.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Hey Dad podcast, where you join us at the table as we talk about the many questions of life. I'm Reese.
And I'm David.
And he's my dad. And we're going to go ahead and jump in with the question of the day. So, Dad.
Yes.
Which of your personality traits would you like to make a little adjustment to, change a little bit?
It's kind of weird because, we just went through Working Genius,
right?
Which is incredible, very, very freeing in a lot of ways. But it kind of fit with something I've known about myself for a long time. I don't feel as guilty as I used to be because of Working Genius, but I am really good at imagining stuff. And in my mind, seeing it all. But then when it comes down to doing it day by day, that's where I struggle. And I always thought I was just a failure. But Lencioni's book makes me realize, that's just how I'm wired.
Right.
It's not an excuse. I've still got to get things done.
Yeah.
But if that would be one where if I was a little better about finishing, about getting to the end of a project, and being a little bit more of that tenacious person toward things, that would probably be what I would want to do. Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know us, I'm almost like the same as my dad in a lot of ways.
It was scary.
And so like even on that little, that survey, we had almost exactly the same results. I think there was one thing that was flipped.
Yeah. Wonder and invention, I think we were switched. Like one was just a little higher than the other on each of us.
Yeah. So there was only like one difference. And so similarly, it would be good for me to be able to finish things, but to not copy you, I would say that one thing is to be able to switch off the invention gifting would be nice. Because I sometimes am constantly coming up with new stuff. And in a way, it can almost be a burden.
Yeah.
Because if you don't do it a lot, you get like an itch to do it.
Yeah.
And then once you do it, you almost feel obliged to make it happen. And so like there's just this constant stream of new tasks and projects that you could do. And in a way that can be kind of stressful because you're like, I can't do all this. Like I came up with 6 new ideas this morning, And so it would be nice to almost master the art of being able to be like, not right now, Brian.
Yeah. Turn it off.
Let's turn it off for the rest of the day. You came up with 243 ideas. Let's stop at 243.
Yeah.
So that's probably what I would choose.
Yeah. One of the things that helped me is I built a file in my Evernote just called ideas. And if I have one that I really want to jazz on, I'm like, no, it's not. So I just throw it in there. And that lets it incubate. And I know I have it, so it makes me feel better. But that's helped me because sometimes I'll think of something and I'll just be like, I'm going to do that. And I've got 6 other projects I'm not done with.
Exactly.
And I want to start working on this one because it's exciting. And so, it's true. It's true.
What's funny to me is that there's a lot of people out there that aren't like that.
Yeah, it's true.
That's just how I'm wired. So I'm like, man, I bet everybody has this problem. No.
Yeah.
Like my wife's a great example. She doesn't think like that. So she doesn't have like the 10,000 new ideas randomly hitting her and wanting to start all of them.
Yeah.
And in a way, there's just a slight bit of envy sometimes because I'm like, man, you can just have a normal day and just, that's it, like that sounds pretty sweet.
It is. Sometimes you walk around the house and you see all the things that you want to do that you're not doing. And that can, where you start to kind of beat yourself up.
Yeah. It's easy to fall into that.
It is.
Okay, so let's go ahead and jump in with the actual topic of the day. As we have said multiple weeks in a row, we are still in the process of the personal reboot. And today we are talking about values, the importance of values, what are values. They're really one of the key tools for success. So since people talk about how important that is, can you give us some examples of why it may be important, or maybe some situations to where if you don't have your values set up, what that would result in?
Yeah, values are essentially how you kind of gauge everything in what you do. What you value is what you set as important. You know, we just talked about, for us, we have these ideas and they're important to us, but they can kind of get in the way.
Man.
But when you value something, you kind of put it ahead of other things. So if I value a person more than other people, then I'm going to maybe listen to them more, spend more time with them. If I value, you know, my health, I'm going to exercise. Or if I value my spiritual health, I'm going to spend time in the Word. What you value is you know, and an easy way to illustrate it, when you go to the buffet, what do you pick?
True.
You can't eat everything. I mean, you can try. And we all did that, especially in college. We tried to eat everything.
We gave it our best.
But they keep making more food, so you can't eat it all. But eventually you get to that point where you're like, okay, what do I really want? And I've tried, whenever I'm at a place that has a buffet, I try to be very picky. And okay, what looks good to me? What am I in the mood for? And you value, because you know I can't eat it all. And if I try, I'm going to become a whale. So you just kind of, okay, let me find out what I value. And I think we have to do that with life.
Yeah, that's a really good illustration, the buffet, because life is like a limitless buffet.
It is.
Especially today, because I think, you know, if you rewind a few hundred years, you didn't have that many options, you know, and praise God that we get so many options. It's awesome that you can literally do almost anything.
Yeah.
You can do almost anything out there. But with that, the importance of priorities really skyrockets. Because like if you grew up as like a farmer in the 1200s, you know, in Eastern Europe, I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to farm. You're going to go home. You're going to hang out with your family until you go to bed. That's pretty much all you got. Besides like you go to the church on Sunday and that's about it. You know, so you don't have a lot of things competing for your time. But with us, we do. We have a ton of things. Like every time you get on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever social media that may be, you are inundated with new ideas of like, you have to do this. You got to go for this. You should do this. You got, you know, with school, people are like, oh, you should go to this school. You know, like if you're in high school, you should go to that college. You should go to that college. You know, you should do this as a career. You should do that as a career. Money is what's important. Oh, just do what you love. You know, like you have all these competing things that you can do. And that's where priorities comes in. Priorities becomes, like you said, being picky in a good way.
And what you value is what you use to kind of choose and say, how am I going to do it? Because if you don't value anything, you really can't choose. Like I'm trying to get to a point, like I've dropped a couple of my online streaming services because one, I wasn't really watching them. And two, I'm like, okay, which ones do I really want to watch? And even if it's for a season, that way I don't have them all going. So I limit my choices. And that's kind of good because it forces me, okay, I'm going to pick from these two. Of course, one is always going to be Crunchyroll. I'm going to keep that forever. But, you know, right now I'm doing Crunchyroll and BritBox. I'm watching a lot of British. And that's forcing me to kind of stay in those zones and not go, well, what do I feel like? Where I've done nights where I'll sit there for 30 minutes. Standing, watch nothing. And be like, you know, you just kind of feel yucky after that. And so I think values help us kind of bring our mind in and go, okay, let me bring a little discipline to my action. And that way I can really pick what I want.
You can almost think of it like a restaurant. When you have a restaurant that does 7,000 different things, it's usually an indicator that it doesn't do any of them that great. But when you have a restaurant that does like one thing and like, it's like, you know, a grandma and grandpa who grew up, you know, in the middle of the woods and they just, all they do is make steaks and potatoes and that restaurant's existing. Those are going to be the best steak and potatoes you've ever eaten in your life.
It's true.
Because they have focused and they focused on making that one thing excellent.
It's true.
Or like a Chick-fil-A versus, you know, maybe, I mean, I don't want to be bogus to Wendy's, but like a Wendy's to where like, they do burgers, but they also have this chicken stuff. And then they also have this and that. And then they're always like switching it up and trying to change things up. But Chick-fil-A is like, we do chicken sandwiches. And you know what? After about 15 years, we're going to come out with one that's spicy.
It's true.
And it was the biggest deal when they went from just having a normal chicken sandwich to having a spicy chicken sandwich.
I know.
But you knew when they put that thing in there, it was going to be incredible. And so that's kind of what we have to do for our life. If we try and do all of it, we're not going to do much of it that great.
Yeah, and what you value is, I think, how you come in and say, okay, what is most important to me? And that's a good thing. It's not that you're going to block out, but you have to specialize or you'll never do anything because you're afraid of missing out. The fear of missing out, I think, is actually paralyzing a lot of people. And so when you prioritize, you're coming in and saying, okay, I'm not going to worry about what I miss out. I'm going to really focus on these things because this is what's important to me.
Yeah, there's the fear of missing out. And then there's also the element of a fear of failure. Because it's like, what if I commit to this?
Yeah.
And it doesn't work?
Yeah.
Or what if I commit to this and it doesn't turn out the way I think? What if I'm not happy doing it? Well, the truth is you can start something new if you have to.
Yeah.
But that's not a reason to not pick anything. Because the truth is, and I'd love for you to kind of explain this, you have said before that everyone has priorities. Everyone has values.
Yeah.
It's really just a question of whether you're doing it on purpose or not. So what do you mean when you say everyone has values and priorities?
Well, everybody's going to value something in their life, and they're either going to do it intentionally, this is what's important to me, or unintentionally. And the value is like that filter that everything comes through in your brain. So the way you see things has to do with what you value. And if you're not intentional about your values, a lot of times you will unintentionally make your values all about you. And I think that's what we're seeing in our society today. And so it really comes down to intentional and unintentional values. Everyone's going to value something. People, when they go to a restaurant, you're going to pick what you want to eat because of what you value and what you're in the mood for at that moment, your health, all these things. Everybody's going to choose to live their life based on their values. If they say they have no values, then it's a lie. Their value is usually just going to be something that's kind of selfish and self-centered. Yeah.
I think that's true. Or like whatever may be the easiest in the moment or whatever. A lot of times it becomes the path of least resistance, which is usually not the best thing.
Yeah.
A good way of thinking about values is they're like the grid through which you make the decisions of life.
They really are.
They're like the filter. You know, in my mind, what matters. And that affects what decisions you make and then ultimately who you become. Because the decisions you make over the long haul change you.
Yeah, they change everything about you.
Yeah, when you set your values, you're kind of setting a path to who you are becoming. Because every day is the journey of becoming. Every day is the journey of changing. You're never static. You're never just like, I think sometimes that's a problem with the question of like, who am I? People are like, who am I? Well, a lot of that's up to you.
Yeah, it really is.
God gave you stuff to start out with. He's got a general plan for your life. But he's also given you free will. And a lot of that can adjust based on your decisions.
Yeah, and the decisions we make are kind of how we choose that direction for us.
So the way that you make decisions comes from your values, and that adjusts who you become.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the difference between those two categories you made. Intentional values and then unintentional values. Explain to us what good intentional values look like, what they do. Maybe give us a little bit of an idea.
Yeah, intentional values are really how you choose how you're going to live. And that's the point. And you said that God gives us a choice in so many areas. And so we choose what we want to do. And you say, does it really work that way? It really does. Like you choose a lot of times your attitude. We think happiness is something that just happens. It's really something we choose. You can choose to be happy. You say, well, I don't feel happy, but you can still choose to be happy. And the feelings a lot of times will follow your choices.
Right.
And so when you intentionally value something, you choose it whether you feel it or not. And that's the key point of intentionality. People who get into exercise, they get past that point where they're like, this is important, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And they do it again and again. And eventually they start to enjoy it more and more. But they know there's going to be sometimes they're not going to feel it, but they know on the other side of it, they'll like it. So they choose it. That's intentional. When you marry someone and you say, I'm going to marry you and spend my life with you, you're intentionally choosing them and saying, I'm going to forget all the rest.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be just with you. So you're valuing that person. And so what we have to understand is it's kind of our way of living on purpose.
Yeah.
Instead of just taking life as it comes and reacting to everything, you're actually choosing where you want to go. Just like when you get in a car, you don't drive based on just the road that's up ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, that road looks good. Let me go down that.
Yeah.
You can do that, but you'll get lost.
You're going to end up somewhere very random.
Yeah. You'll be, how did I get to Iowa? I was going to Kentucky, whatever.
Yeah.
But for us, we have to choose how we're going to live life.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't mean we're gods of our own life, but God gives us choice and he expects us to have agency in what we do. And that's intentionality.
Yeah. And when you don't have intentionality with setting your values, you fall to what we could call the tyranny of the urgent.
Yeah, it's true.
Whatever is the most in your face wins. And the truth is, a lot of times, what's the most in your face is not the most important. Occasionally it is, but that's actually kind of rare. Usually whatever's the most in your face is not the most important. I think of a guy who has a very high intensity job.
Yeah.
And because his job's so high intensity, he always ends up staying late in the office because he hasn't set his values. He hasn't been intentional.
Yeah.
So he's focusing on, I got to get this project done. I got to get this thing done. But he's missing the moments with his own family.
Yeah.
Because he hasn't intentionally set that value, he's now focusing on whatever's the most urgent. And that's not that important. Like nobody, like when you're at when it's your funeral one day, nobody's going to come up and be like, man, he always got his work done right on time.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to say that.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
They don't.
And so you have to kind of come to a realization that whenever you pick your values, it almost it empowers you because now you have a grid. Now you can say, oh, it's this or this. Well, let me look at the values that I've set. Okay, I'm definitely going to go with this one.
Yeah, and you're right. I think when we're not intentional with our values, we're unintentional. And the tyranny of the urgent, I think, is a good way to coordinate, because I think so many people today are living based on the tyranny of the urgent, the tyranny of what's big right now. Like all the people who are trying to be influencers, what's the big rage on TikTok or whatever? I've got to try to do that. So what they're doing is they're not creating content. What they're doing is they're making content based on others, based on other situations. So they're not being intentional. Right. And so what we have to do is understand that intentionality has everything to do with values. If you're not intentional, the unintentional values, your boss is going to run you, your selfishness, your whatever the emergency is, like you said, that will become the urgent. That will become your value.
Yep.
And that's when other people control your life.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you'll feel that. You'll be like, something's just missing.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we'll start blaming outside things when what we really need to do is look within and say, okay, what am I doing? How am I doing this? What am I doing to myself?
Yeah. And I think it's also important to note that some values will never change.
Yeah.
And some values will. Like, it's always good to go and examine your values as your seasons of life change.
Yeah.
Because, like, whether you have kids or not is very much going to change where your values lie. If you don't have kids, obviously they don't have to be on the list,
Yeah.
But if you do, then they get pretty high on the list if you want to have a healthy family.
Yeah, it's like when you get married, when you have kids, and really, are you going to serve God or not? Are you going to live for something higher than yourself?
Oh yeah.
And I think that's where intentional values are. Okay, what's my worldview? Do I believe in God? Am I gonna serve Him? And that decision really sets so many other things.
It does. There are cornerstone values.
Yeah.
Things that are the foundation of your other values.
Yeah.
So, we're going to talk about that next week whenever we go into how to set values. But it's also remembering that your values aren't just a general list where everything's equal. Yeah. Even your values have priorities.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I value this and I value this. But which one's more important to me?
Yeah. And that's the thing. You have to start with values, and then your priorities come from that. Because if you say, I value my family, Okay, well, a lot of people say that, but it needs to work into your action. What are you prioritizing? Because you can say you value something, but then how you act really shows the reality of what you value.
And the other element is like, yes, you value your family, but what order?
Yeah.
Like, what's more important to you? Your kids or your grandparents?
Yeah.
What's more important to you? The extended family that you meet with, or is it your spouse?
Yeah.
The mother-in-law or the spouse?
Yeah.
Because that's kind of an important question.
It is an important question.
Okay, so we don't have much time left, but I just want you to give me, if we don't have any values, if we're unintentional with our values, I guess would be the better way to say it.
Yeah.
What happens aside from the tyranny of the urgent? What are some of the things that end up occurring?
Yeah, I think what will happen is the urgent will control us, but also we're gonna just look at what's best right now, and we won't think long term. We're gonna choose what do I want in the moment, and that usually doesn't always come out well. Like a person who's just used to, this is what I want, I'm going to do it. Yeah. Well, if you don't curb that, eventually you're going to make some bad choices and it's going to hurt you. Or you're going to make choices that will alienate other people around you because they're going to realize you're not someone they can trust because everything you do is about self. And so that's the dangerous side of the unintentional is you'll go very much inward and you'll be really controlled by your passions, your emotions. It's kind of like animals. I mean, I'm not trying to say everybody's an animal who doesn't have values, but animals do everything by instinct.
Right.
And humans, I think, are getting very much like that. When we cast off any type of system of values, we become very instinctual. I want this person. I'm going to have sex with them. Okay, I'm married. What's the big deal? And it's like, well, that will destroy the family. Yeah. It just will. And it does. And it has. So what you're doing is in the moment that felt like the right thing to do, but you gave up all this other for it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing we have to be careful and bring in something that's higher than us, that's above us. And that's why, scripture, I think, is the best way to do it.
No, I agree 100%. I think we just have to recognize that we will, if we go by the moment, if we go by the feelings, if we go by selfishness, we'll mess ourselves up.
Yeah, we will.
We'll destroy ourselves every time. Like when you go throughout history, people who have done their own thing usually aren't remembered very well.
No, it usually, or they burn out, or they do good for a little bit, and then they start making bad choices. It's not pretty.
Yeah. So this is like next week, as we talk about how to set up the values. Yeah, this is going to
prioritizing things next week.
Exactly. Yeah. And it'll set you up for success in the future.
It really will.
Because whenever you go through those steps and go through that process and then learn to examine it from time to time, you're going to be empowered to live in a better way.
Yeah.
So check out next week. Let's go ahead and go into the questions now.
Yeah, let's do it.
So there are 3 questions, as there usually are. This is number 1. What can I do to not always feel like I'm playing catch up with life? This is a good one.
Yeah, that is a good one. And I think it kind of, not to pat ourselves on the back, but this week's getting some values is, I think, the beginning process of, if you always feel like you're catching up, then somewhere you're letting other people control. And you need to pull back, set your own values, and then listen to next week's show, learn how to prioritize, because then you'll figure out maybe what I'm doing that I don't need to be doing. Because sometimes we feel that way because we've said yes to too many things. We're trying to do too much. And we need to pull back here or, do more here. And we need to really figure out, can I do all of this? Should I do all of this? And I think a lot of times we kind of put ourselves in that place because we don't know what's really important to us.
Yeah. No, that's very good. I think in a way, this has a lot to do with values and priorities, but setting boundaries, I think, is very important because the truth is the checklist never ends.
Yeah, it does.
It'll never end. You're never going to get to a point where everything's taken care of.
Yeah.
And you can just chill.
Yeah.
Like life's never going to give that to you. As much as we want to say, once I make this much money,
Yeah.
once I get these things fixed around the house, once I get this degree, once I get this promotion,
Yeah.
then I'm going to be able to chill.
Yeah.
Wrong. Every time. It's completely wrong.
It doesn't work that way.
It never will work that
No.
way. And you got two choices. One, you can be bitter about that.
Mm-hmm.
Or two, you can say, well, since my life is a journey, not a destination,
Yeah.
I'm going to set boundaries of, hey, I'm going to take this time and I'm just going to exist.
Yeah.
I'm going to just live. I'm going to make memories with my family. I'm going to be with these people that are in my life. Whatever that may look like, that helps you realize that you're more than just the tasks you do.
Mm-hmm.
That can be, I find for me, like my wife and I set Saturdays aside as like a Sabbath.
Yeah.
We chill, we relax. And that's important to me. And I really fight for that. If anybody ever sets anything on Saturdays, I'm usually I'm either going to say no.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to say, hey, I'll do it this time, but if we could not do that again, like we had that with a worship time. I was like, hey, I'll stick with it. I know we had a lot of stuff happen, but if we could not do that again, that'd be great. And it's not because I'm a jerk.
Yeah.
It's because I know that person and every other person in my life will set a schedule based on what they want.
Yeah.
And if I just let it happen to me, they may not do it intentionally, but I'm just going to be constantly responding to what other people do and getting other things done and grinding into the dust.
Yeah. And you'll be living a responsive life instead of what we said, a proactive, intentional life. You'll always be responding and you'll always feel like you're playing catch up. That's the danger.
It is. Ooh, this next question.
Okay.
Crocs. Yes or no? Do we wear them with socks? I mean, like what's the deal with Crocs? They came back and nobody thought they would.
Crocs are back. When I was in Korea, it was amazing. They had huge Croc stores and they're really big into the decorating of their Crocs, putting things in the holes and all that. I wear Crocs around the house. I use them as like my house shoes. I don't wear them out in public. I just can't. And, maybe I'm old school. Well, I am old school, but, in fact, one day I was going somewhere. I got in the car and started driving away and realized I just got my Crocs on. I turned around and came back. I just can't do it. I do wear them with socks because I don't like my feet. I don't like bare feet in shoes. I just don't. I don't know why. But for me, I wear them with socks, but I only wear them around the house. I don't wear them out in public. I know people do. More power to you. It's just not my thing.
Yeah, I personally loved Crocs the first time around.
Yeah.
I was a kid. I wore them all the time.
Yeah, you did.
And because they were comfortable. And that's my number one priority. We talked about values. Comfort. Comfort is a value for me when it comes to clothes. But I would have a pair. I'd wear it around the house. I might even wear it in public. I don't know.
Yeah.
My wife hates them. She says that if I ever get a pair, she's going to burn them. And I don't think she's joking.
No, she's not.
I don't think it's a joke.
Yeah.
I think she hates them so much.
Yeah.
That she would do that.
She'll let you get sliders, but not Crocs.
And that's my thing. I have slides now. Yeah. That's what has replaced Crocs for me.
Slides will take care of it.
Yeah, I guess I'm more stylish or whatever. Final question.
Okay.
Can you give me a couple more examples of using habit stacking like you talked about last episode?
Oh, yeah. We talked about that last episode. I think you do, when you wash dishes, you watch anime.
I watch anime, 100%.
Yeah. For me, when I clean the house, I'm listening to a podcast or a book. In fact, there's a podcast that I really enjoy, comes out every day. And a lot of times when I'm cooking or doing things, I have that going because it's nice because you're thinking about stuff, but it's not so heavy that you can't, concentrate on what you're doing. And it makes me, I'm going to clean now. So I listen to a book when I do stuff like that. Yep. And it just makes you feel like, okay, I'm enjoying this.
I'm debating on whether to share this one or not, but it's been one of the most effective habit stacks I've ever done.
Uh-oh.
I do language practice whenever I have to go to the bathroom.
Yep.
Because it's something that I know I'm going to do every day.
Yeah.
And so I do Duolingo at that time.
Yeah.
Most people just check social media, but I've made it to where I do Duolingo. And I mean, I've been doing it every day for a couple years now.
Yeah.
And it's because I combined a habit I knew I do with a habit that I wanted to develop. That's another way to use it.
It's funny because recently I've got a bunch of books I'm kind of reading through.
Yeah.
So I started just the other day. We talked about habit stacking. I take one and I set it in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Right in front.
There you go.
So the phone doesn't come out as easy because I see the book.
And it's
I'm
right
like,
there.
I want to read that.
Yeah.
And so each day I do a different book. So it's a little variety.
Yeah.
But 5-10 minutes, 15, depending on if you have issues, you can get a lot of reading in.
It's true.
It's not a bad thing. I tell men all the time, you can read if you go to the bathroom. Mm-hmm. You probably go at least 5 minutes a day. Mm-hmm. You could get some reading done and do something to grow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that may be a little crass on the habit stacking side, but hey, it's a way to do it.
Well, the first examples we gave, like the anime and stuff, that's combining something that's a task with something that you enjoy.
Yeah.
Right? That's one way to habit stack. The second example we gave with going to the bathroom, that's combining a habit that you want to develop with something you know that you have to do.
That's a good way to do it.
Like let's say you want to spend more time with your wife.
Yeah.
You guys just don't spend enough time together. Well, you have to eat every day.
Yeah.
So what if you made dinner time table time?
Yeah.
And what if you made table time talking time? So every time we eat, we're going to move from the couch.
Yeah.
And we're not going to just watch something while we're eating.
Yeah.
We're going to sit at the table and we're going to talk.
Yeah.
Like that is something you're going to do. Mm-hmm. And so you combine it with something you want to develop.
Yeah. Like I've seen some people where a lot of times they'll watch stuff while they're exercising, like on a treadmill or stuff like that. Mm-hmm. It's a way of combining habits. I don't knock them for that.
That's how I started.
Yeah. That's how a lot of people do it because I'm going to go through this series, but I'm only going to watch it when I'm on the treadmill. Mm-hmm. So what does that do? It makes you go to the treadmill.
I got to go check out the treadmill because I need to know what happens in the next episode of this drama.
I know. So it's not a bad thing, especially when it builds a habit.
Yes.
And it helps you do something that you want to do.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And if you guys need any more advice or you have any more questions, feel free you can message us on Instagram at the Hey Dad Podcast, or you can email us at questions@heydad.us. That's all the time we've got for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you in the next episode.
Thank you for joining us on the Hey Dad Podcast. If you enjoyed the episode today, subscribe so you don't miss any new content. We'd also love for you to rate and leave a review and help us get the word out to more people. If these talks are making your life better, we ask that you share them with someone else. If you have any questions for us or anything going on in your life you want an opinion on, we would love to hear from you. You can email us at questions@heydad.us or send us a message on our Instagram page at the Hey Dad Podcast. Join us next week. We'll have a chair waiting for you.